Welcome to exercise number 5, where we are going to implement the artificial intelligence for our Texas Hold'em application. So we're going to use all of the hard work we did in the previous 4 exercises and then add a lot of logic in order to configure this artificial intelligence. In order to make the computer intelligent, we're going to take into consideration the hand ranking pre-flop and the hand ranking post-flop. We're also going to look at the human bet amount. So putting these two factors together will allow us to make a good choice for the computer. So if we know that the computer's hand ranking is low or the human bet is high, then we might want to exit the hand or fold the hand. If we have a high ranking hand and then we might want to bet. If the human has a high bet, we might want to slow down and not bet as much because the human is showing strength. Anyway, so we're going to take into consideration these factors to determine what our decision is going to be. So are we going to fold? Are we going to call? Are we going to raise? What are we going to do at every point during the hand? So knowing where our relative hand ranking is and knowing the human bet size will help us determine what action to take. In order to implement this intelligence, the PokerAI.py module has been created. It is a copy of the Poker.py module that we originally used, except that the computer class, which originally selected its choice at random, has been updated so that now there is this get AI choice method. This is the method that you're going to change in order to implement the intelligence. And there's a couple other lines of code that have been added as well. I'm going to cover that, as well as adding all of the 4 previous functions from above that we just did in those 4 previous exercises. To help you implement this intelligence, there is a template of a single round of intelligent betting from the computer. This is when round equals 1. This is the pre-flop. So that is already laid out for you. And if you can copy that sort of template for the other rounds in order to make the computer intelligent for those rounds. So there is no intelligence provided for rounds 2, 3, and 4, but you can use the intelligence for round 1 in order to make it intelligent for the other rounds. All right, so let's go ahead and flip over to VS Code, and I have PokerAI.py over here. This is what you're going to be editing. My solution is over here, this PokerAI solution.py. So this has all the code that's filled out. Your job is to edit this file and add your code there. So number 1, it says to scroll down to line 167. That's where all the hand rank functions are. So if we go down here, this is where they begin. So these are the same 4 functions that we just went over in the solutions in the previous 4 exercises. So you can just copy them over here. They are left blank right now, but that's what you can do. You can copy it. Before we move on any further, I do want to say that all of the other classes are the same. So this is really just a copy and paste from poker.py over here, but with some additional things. So the first additional thing are these functions over here. We do create the preflop scores list just outright in this code. So this will now refer to all those scores where you can look up your pre-score or your preflop score ranking. Using this calculate preflop rank. So we will use that, but we need the score list first. So that is there. The player class remains the same. The computer class, this is where the major change is, and it's inside of make choice. So before this make choice just chose at random, I can show you that over here. Let me show you this make choice. So what it did was it used these 2 lines to make that choice at random. So both the choice and the bet size over here. Now, instead of choosing at random, it uses this get AI choice method. So this is the important method over here that will actually implement all of the artificial intelligence. I now want to cover how this intelligence works for the first round. So the full logic and code is already written for round equals 1, as you can see below. So I want to explain all of this, but I want to show you in the code block for if round equals 1, the template of the intelligence. So here it is. It's going to look at the human bet size. It's going to look at the pre-flop rank because it's round 1. That's what it's going to do. Look at the pre-flop rank. And then eventually it's going to select a choice based on the preflop rank, the human bet size, and sometimes a random value. Okay, so if you keep on looking down below, once you get to this else statement, that's the one underneath this if round equals 1. This is where the other rounds come in, and this is really the part where you are going to change the logic or just really add logic since none really exist. So over here we have a bunch of pass statements, and these need to be changed into more if-else statements where eventually a choice, the variable choice, is set equal to some actual choice. All right, so that's what's going to happen. But so this is the template that I'm talking about. It's under round equals 1. You can use it down below for the other rounds in order to implement, your own intelligence there. All right, so let's go back to the top so we can look at what is happening over here. The first thing I do is get a random value between 0 and 1. So this helps randomize the decisions. So the computer won't always take the same action if it has the same exact hand. So you'll see below, sometimes we'll have it such that there'll be a 50-50 chance between calling and raising and so forth. Here we're just assigning the human bet to a variable. We could use this full dotted, attributes, but it's just easier to assign it to a variable. So because we're going to use it many times instead of having all of these dots. Same thing with the round and also with the dealer. So this just determines whether the dealer is the computer or not. So it's a true or false. And to make things simpler, for the human bet, we're going to divide it by 2 for the third and fourth rounds. This just helps them always be between 0 and 40 and not doubled. So just going to reduce it. This doesn't reduce it for the actual program. This is just in this method right here. All right, so let's take a look now. When it's round equals 1, what happens during this intelligence, right? So the first thing I do is actually print out the computer's hand. This is just for checking, right? You're going to delete this for the real game. So I'm going to print out the hand and the rank over here. So you can see what is the computer's hand. It's good. This is just good internal feedback for testing. And then we're going to print out the actual hand of the ranking over here as well. So you can see, is it a poor hand? Is it a good hand? What is its rank? All right. Now this is where I really want you to edit the code over here. So you can start editing this, but you might want to keep the preflop the same until you've actually finished the code for the rest. All right. So let's see how this works. So the computer, when it's pre-flop, the human will either, if the human has bet $10, the human can never bet $0 pre-flop. Like there's always blinds. And when it's the computer's turn, the human will have either folded in case the hand is over, called, which means there's $10 in the pot, or raised to 20. So the lowest the human can bet in the first round is 10. So if the computer is the dealer, that means the human has actually not gone yet. It's the computer's turn. The computer has bet 5. So this is what it's saying, computer's dealer and first act pre-flop. So if there's a bad hand, it means in the lower 10%, that's what this is saying. It's saying if the pre-flop rank is lower than 0.1, is in the bottom 10%, we are just going to fold. If the pre-flop rank is between 10 and 50%, we are going to then use this random value to randomize the decision. And if this random value is less than 0.5, that means less than 50%, about 50% of the time we're going to raise. Otherwise, we're going to call. So this is a 50-50 raise or call situation. Now, else, that means we have a good hand, or at least greater than 50%. The pre-flop rank is between 50% and 100%. That means we're going to raise most of the time. So 80% of the time we're going to raise, 20% we are going to call. All right, so that's if the human or if the computer is a dealer. Otherwise, if the computer is not the dealer, that means the human has gone first. The human is the dealer, and they've called from 5 to 10. So now what we're going to do is we're going to be a little bit more cautious because the human is already in the hand. And if we have a lower than 50% hand pre-flop, we're just going to check. We don't have to put any more money in the pot because the human has matched it, and both players have put $10 in the pot. All right. If the choice is, or if we have a hand ranking between 50 and 80%, so a good hand, a better than average hand, we're going to raise 50% of the time and check the other 50% of the time. So we're going to use that random value again. If it's lower than 50%, then we will raise. Otherwise, we will check. If we have a good hand, else, that means we have in the top 20% of of the hand. So we're higher than the 80%. So this means we have a pretty good hand over here. We're going to raise 80% of the time. So if that random value is less than 0.8, that happens 80% of the time. Otherwise, we will check. All right, so that is when the human has bet $10. So either the human has called 5 or it's on us and they have not, the human has not acted yet. And, we are first to act. All right. Now, so you can see it's a complex nested if else. So there's a lot of, all these different situations that can happen, right? The human is bet 10, the human is bet 20, the human is the dealer, based on our pre-flop ranking, based on the human, ranking, based on the random value. There's all these if conditions. So this is a little bit difficult to decipher at first. It will take some time to understand. Now, so that's only if the human is bet 10. Now, in this block, we look at if the human is bet less than 40. That means either 20 or 30. That's the only other possible situations. So this means the human has raised. So the human is showing strength, right? There's an indication that the human has a strong hand. All right. So if the pre-flop rank is less in the bottom 80%, well, we are just going to call here to see the flop. You could consider folding some of these hands as well because the human is showing some strength. But here we're just going to call if we have a lower than 80% of that hand. Otherwise, we have a top 80% hand, or a top 20%. So in that case, we will raise 50% of the time and call the other 50% of the time. So we will raise above the human. Now, the last else, this is, if the human is bet more than 40, which really just means a max of 40. So in this case, the human is always bet 40. We are going to call here always. We're not going to fold our hand because we've already put in a lot of money. We want to see the flop. We want to see those 3 cards. This means we've bet 30 pre-flop. The human has bet 40. We just need 10 more to call. So there's already a lot of money to win. So we might as well just go ahead and call here. It would be a bad choice to fold at that point. All right, so that is all of the decisions pre-flop, right? So we're using the human bet size. We're using whether we are a dealer or not. We're using the pre-flop rank, and we are using a random value to randomize our choice. So all of those factors we are using to come up with a decision. Now, it's up to you now to determine what's going to happen the other 3 rounds, right? So here is for all other 3 rounds are going to have the same decision. You can have, if an if, round equals 2. You can have different decisions for each round, but just to keep it simple, you can have the same decisions for all 3 rounds. Right now, the other thing you're going to use, instead of using this pre-flop rank, you're going to use the hand rank. And the difference there, the hand rank is after the flop. Right? So I guess I could have used the same variable name here, just like hand rank or something. But there is one ranking pre-flop, right, for just those 2 cards. Post-flop, you're getting an actual hand rank with a 5-card poker hand. Right. So here I print it out. Again, for the real game, you're not going to print this out. You're going to just delete this. But you will be using hand rank here in your if-else statements to decide what the choice is. So I've given you what the choices can be at each stage, just so that you don't return a bad choice. Like if your choices are check or bet and you return fold, then that's not possible. So I tell you what are the choices at each stage over here, right? And so you have to set choice equal to one of those strings in this if-else block. All right, so that's how you do it. I want to show you a game, how it's played. Here's the solution over here. Actually, before that, I changed the poker class as well. There's just 2 little changes in the poker class. Number 1 is when you're dealing. So we compute the pre-flop rank is computed. So that did not happen in our original poker.py. So this is new. We had to compute the pre-flop rank during dealing. So after the computer receives its hand, it has to know what its pre-flop rank is between 0 and 1. So that's where it's computed. And then after the flop, the turn, and the river, we have to compute the hand ranking. So that 5-card poker hand. And this is done in the increment round. So this is at the when we're switching between rounds, we are going to compute the hand rank over here based on this function. This function we already created in the last, in these last exercises. So this is just using stuff we've already built. All right. Okay, so that is it. What I want to do now is show you this. I want to play the AI so that you can see what happens, and we're going to print out the the hand and the ranking of the computer so you can see exactly what is happening. I'm going to go ahead and play the Poker AI solution so you can see it, the hand and the ranking printed out. All right, so here it is. So here's our new hand. So I've been dealt a 7 and a 6. I'm always first to act for the first hand. The human, that's me, I bet 5. The computer is bet 10. Let's go ahead and just call over here. So we're going to call to 10. And here we go. Here is the computer goes. So the computer has an 8 and a 3. This is a bad hand, as you can see here. It's 0.136. So it's one of the lower hands, the lower 15th percent. And then here comes the flop. So we made it to the flop. King, or 9, King, Jack. The computer's hand is still very bad. It is 8 and a 3. So it's still in the bottom. It's only in the 22nd percentile. So it's still not very good. I'm just going to go ahead and check so we can see a hand over here. Just continue on to the river. The hand ranking is still low. There's no pair, right? 8 and a 3 makes no pair. I'm going to go ahead and it actually says the computer bets over here. So this must have been a chance. So let me actually go through the actually the logic is not, I did not show the solution over here as logic over here. But whatever it was, it made the computer bet. So I'm actually going to fold and go to the next hand. So I have a 7 and 6. I can see I'm just cheating, right? I can see the computer's hand. My hand is actually worse, so if I stay in the hand, I'm going to lose. Let's just see if there's a little bit more of an interesting hand. The next one, so here's number 2. And this time the computer is going to go first. I have a 5 and a 4. And here's the computer's cards, a queen and a 2. The computer calls 5. I'm going to go ahead and check here. So they did not raise, allowing me to call. And now the pre-flop, the computer had a hand of queen 2. It's also not a great hand. It's in the 30, has 0.33, so 33rd percentile. The computer now actually has a pair of 2. So there's a 2 over here and over here. I'm actually just going to do check, and then the computer hand, it's now bumped up to the 69th percentile. So you can see it improved because it now has a pair of 2s, right? So now it beats all the other, it beats like a king and a jack, an ace and a jack. Those were all hands that it was worse than before. But now that it has a pair, it's better than all of those hands that have an ace or a king but don't have a pair. All right, so the computer bets 10. I'll go ahead and just call. Now here are my cards, a 5 and a 4. I have a very bad hand. All right, so the computer, it's still my turn. I'm going to check. Now here's the computer's hand. It's gone down a little bit to the 53rd percentile because it hasn't improved. Like it has a queen and a 2, but there's no other queens. There's no other 2s over here. It's not as good. There's also 3 hearts on the board you can see here. So there's a possibility somebody has a flush. In fact, I have a heart. So if one more heart, actually that's not a heart, but if I had one heart, another heart would give me a flush. The computer goes ahead and bets 20. I'll go ahead and call. I'm close to getting a straight, by the way. So I did not get a straight, 7, 6, 5, 4. I needed a 3 or an 8. I did not get one. And so I don't have a pair. I'm actually going to check. The human checks. The computer's hand is down to 44%. It actually is worse than in a random hand over here. That's because there's so many other hands over here. Anything with a king beats it. Anything with a 6, 7, or 10 will also beat it. And possibility of a straight or even a flushes are possible as well. So, I mean, it's better than 44% of the hand, so that's not bad, but it's just not better than a random hand. Of course, it beats my hand of a 5 and a 4. I don't have a pair. And the computer just checked, actually, after I checked, so it went to a showdown, and the computer won with one pair of twos with a king kicker. All right, let's just play one more hand here, just so that you can see what's going on. That's why I like printing this out. Now I have a queen and a two, so I'll go ahead and call. I'm not racing that much because I want to see what the computer does. So here's the computer's hand. They have a 10 and a 9, 68%, so it's, a fairly decent hand. And then here is the flop, 10, 8, 7. So the computer now has the top pair, has two 10s. It's the top pair, and that means the highest pair. So they actually have quite a good hand now. They're in the 90th percentile. They beat 90% of random hands. I'm going to go ahead and check. The computer check there. So sometimes there will be a check with a strong hand. This time the computer, now we have 10, 8, 7, 3. So the computer has hands went down a little bit. It's at the 87th percentile. The computer bet 20. I'm going to go ahead and call this just so I can see a river. And so I have not made a pair or any hand. I just have a high card queen. The computer is down to 82%. So there's another 7. So that means anyone that had a 7 now beats the computer. That's why this went down to 82%. I will call, even though I know I'm going to lose, just to so I can see the showdown. So the computer won with two pairs, 10s and 7s, with a 9 kicker. I lost. Okay, so that's how you can make. That's how the computer. That's a nice example. 3 hands of the computer intelligence. For the real hand, you will just you can just delete this hand or delete this code that prints this out. But for now, when you're building the application, you might want to keep this in, and just so you can see what's happening throughout. So again, what you're going to be editing is the get AI choice method. So here it is of the computer class. All right, and specifically, you might want to leave the if round equals 1 alone. You can just leave that as your template. You get down here to rounds 2, 3, and 4, and that's where you're going to edit. You're going to use this hand rank. You're going to use the human bet. You're going to use the RAND value like I did. You can even use whether it's the dealer. You can use more things. You can track more things later on, but you're going to set choice to equal some string somewhere in here, and then you can see the possible choices are given to you. Those are the possible choices that you have to make at each stage of the hand. All right, so that's it for the artificial intelligence. There's a lot there. I know this was like a very long video, but hopefully it shows you what took place to help the computer think. It is a big nested if-else statement for many different situations of the game. So different scenarios call for different choices. If you know poker, you can make these very finely tuned and just really experiment with really just very finely grained, tuned process of artificial intelligence. All right, so hopefully that was fun and you can make your Texas Hold'em app even more intelligent.